Junkyard Dreams. Once there was a man with blue hair who slept in a crescent moon. His feet hung over him, and he whistled a tune. He looked down at the blue houses and the light of dawn. He decided he would have a dream, so he closed his eyes. In his dream, he walked over driveway pavement. He startled dogs. He touched car tires and said, "Wow, this is what they feel like." The first person to see the man in his dream was an old man who was speed walking, and he looked the moon man up and down, squinting at his curious blue hair, and, if he was afraid, the moon man couldn't tell, for the old man could not walk any faster than he had been. The other people woke up and drove to work. They passed by the strange visitor, but they could not believe their eyes. He was at least 9 feet tall, and he wore yellow pajamas decorated with stars. One loud teenager rolled down his window and shouted, "Yo!" And when the moon man opened his mouth, there came a noiseless word. "Whoa," said the teenager. "Unbelievable," he thought. "How weird. The moon man is a space shot." Teen rolled up his window and drove forth on the street. He was going to tell all his friends about that noiseless word when he got to the high school. The visitor walked forward. The last time he had dreamed to Earth, he had eaten steaks at a Brazilian restaurant. He had enjoyed the fatty steaks a lot, so he wanted to try the food again. But it was early in the morning. The steakhouses were closed. He saw a stray dog with patches missing in his wiry coat of fur. "Hey you," said the stray dog. "You're not from around here, are you?" The moon man uttered breath. The dog nodded and said, "Geez, I could talk better human than you. You must be an alien." The moon man and dog, a corgi, walked over the interstate highway to the back of a donut shop where they ate a box of donuts that had been discarded in a dumpster because they had gone stale at the end of yesterday's last shift. There was also a quart of orange juice the man tried and enjoyed drinking. The workers were so glued to their routines and phones that when they looked out the drive-through window, the moon man sitting there eating donuts was mistaken for a distant mountain that was covered in snow. Even the girl who brought the trash out to the dumpster was taking the opportunity to snap a picture. Then she called her boyfriend, so she assumed the moon man was a cardboard cutout after her boyfriend said that's what it probably was. So she assumed, Later on, an overcritical jerk who lacked a human touch said the moon man was just plastic with air in it. A flap over a dumpster Another worker was walking outside later in the morning while the moon man was playing with the dog, teasing the dog to chase after a stick in circles. But the young man only pet the dog, then went back to his fast food grind. The drive-through line was full of customers and cars, like the beautiful blonde who decided her career was going to be in aesthetics. In his Honda, a young man analyzed his dream like a psychoanalyst or shaman. The young man had dreamed that he was alone in his house after a party with friends where he broke his neck and collapsed on the ground. He could not move or shout, and he was totally alone. And then he prayed and reached up his hand, and invisible Jesus pulled him just far, enough so that he was in the driveway when a relative arrived. The relative pulled him into the car. It also told him, "It's safe to say you're in good hands." The young man liked this message, though it came to him in an uncanny form. He recalled he had to say the name Jesus in his dream. Then there was an older man in the drive-thru who had also had a dream the night before. He dreamt that he was telling someone his grandmother cried like a rooster before she died. These two had been standing aside a food court in Hamburg, Germany, when she suddenly went, "Cock-a-doodle-doo!" and fell backward. And after the listener said it was a pity, the man said, "Yeah, my other grandmother did the same thing, cried out like a rooster, and then twirled and collapsed." Why was the man telling people his grandmothers cried like roosters? The man in the drive-thru rubbed his eyebrows and looked out the window for something to take his mind off things, and he noticed the man with blue hair. "Whoa," he said like the teenager. "What are you doing there, pal?" The Moon Man sat up and walked toward the drive-thru customer. He was a queer man in a ball hat. The Moon Man took hold of the bars of the Jeep. He wanted to go somewhere else, so the man let him sit in the back of his Jeep. "This has been one of the most oddball days," said the man. "I've had some real grim dreams last evening." They went through the drive-thru and then continued riding down the road, and the Moon Man stuck out his tongue that was 5 feet long, and he licked the cars they drove past, which all tasted like hot metal on his tongue. The human dropped him off at a hotel on the side of the road because he didn't like him sticking out his tongue in his car. The Moon Man would have liked to wake up then and wake up on the moon with his moon rocks, but he forgot that he was sleeping and continued to dream that he was then employed as a window washer at this hotel. The next thing he knew, he was washing the windows. And he saw a pig face with a human body on one bed. Then a crying man. Then he saw in one of the hotel rooms himself, and he was startled. He uttered a noiseless word. The self in the room recorded him. He continued to clean the windows, and the whole time he did, the sun was out, and he never saw the crescent moon, so he missed the appearance. He longed for her serenity. At last, in the parking lot one night, he noticed a flying saucer. He walked out in the tall grass and tried to wave the saucer toward him to land with its green flashing lights. Though, when he walked toward the awesome light and condensation that was dispersing from inside the craft, the Moon Man was baffled when the tiny grays came out of the craft with cat-like monsters who were missing stomachs and faces, because the Moon Man roared like a lion and the gray aliens bleated like goats. The Moon Man still was not out of the dream. He sat down in a library. He opened a book called The Critique of Pure Reason by Immanuel Kant, and had a lot of trouble understanding the meaning of the following passage. Ahem. Nevertheless, this principle of anticipation, of perception, must somewhat startle an inquirer, whom initiation into transcendental philosophy has rendered cautious. We must naturally entertain some doubt whether or not the understanding can announce any such synthetical proposition as that respecting the degree of all reality and phenomena, and consequently the possibility of the internal difference of sensation itself, abstraction being made of its empirical quality. Thus, it is a question not unworthy of solution how the understanding can pronounce synthetically and a priori respecting phenomena, and thus anticipate these, even in that which is peculiarly and merely empirical, that namely, which concerns sensation itself. And the man with blue hair rubbed his head and messed his hair as he tried to understand Kant. And soon enough he woke up. He was indeed asleep in a crescent moon, but it was a crescent moon in a junkyard that was hanging from a crane. He had blue hair, but he was not 9 feet tall like in his dream. Life was as fantastic, but he could not move around so fast from place to place, and in both his dream and in life, he was having real trouble understanding Immanuel Kant. Though he went on these walks to explore, he went home to his wife, who had beautiful brown eyes and understood his dreams. They had a nice breakfast. They had found change in the dough. The wife adored him and suggested in earnest that if they kept the water clean and flowing in his hovel, in a year's time they could bag a mint. In order to do many things in life, the moon man would need to keep a healthy body. He would become an earthy man, slow moving, but smart.